Hello and welcome to the show. Today we have Entrepreneur You Should Know, and our entrepreneur is Andrew Hoek, and my name is Matthew Kolinsky, and I am the host for today's show. And I am really excited about Andrew because he's got an awesome kind of approach to his businesses and how he's become an entrepreneur. Let me just give you a little bit of entry of what Andrew has done. So he's a partner at DeWitt Law Firm. He heads up the real estate practice group for the firm. He also is an owner of Old Tampa Bay Title, and that was started in 2013. And he really invests in both real estate assets for long-term and short-term holdings. In addition, he's a boater, he's an outdoor lover, a golfer, a Gator fan, and he's a attorney, and he considers himself, of course, an entrepreneur. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Andrew Hoek. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Matt. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, very good, man. It is great to have you on the show today. I love these types of interactions because you're a new member to the organization, and we're just looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better on this podcast. So how is your day starting off? How is your week?
It's been good. We are busy and cranking right now. So it's bouncing from one thing to the next, but that's what kind of keeps me motivated, keeps me going. So it's another good week.
Cool. I know with everything going on in real estate, I'm sure this has to be a good time of year for your businesses. So we're going to get into that. But more importantly, in general, fourth quarter going forward, are you optimistic or pessimistic about fourth quarter overall?
We're excited for it.
Cool.
No one knew it was coming this year, of course, and so we had some real concerns early on during all the COVID stuff, but we've actually done extremely well. The real estate industry has done extremely well.
Yeah.
Some of our commercial business, I think, long term might see a little bit of a downturn, but for now is holding on okay. And the fourth quarter, we don't expect that to change a whole lot. So I think we just made a couple new hires, so we're geared up for a strong finish to the year and looking forward to a strong 2021 as well. So
perfect. All right. Well, let's learn more about your entrepreneur journey. It's one of those things that you hear yourself as an attorney, and then you're like, oh, but then you're also a realtor, and then also you'd have this other title company. So I'd love to learn kind of how did your journey start from kind of after practicing for a big law firm for a while. Tell us about your journey.
Absolutely. And it's kind of a good question. I kid around my wife because people ask, what does your husband do? And she doesn't really know how to answer that question. So
I have that same problem.
Yeah, exactly. So wear a couple hats, but the primary focus is really anything related to real estate. And so I went to law school like many people do because I finished out my undergrad degree with a political science degree and said, what do you do with that now? Yeah, exactly.
They don't tell you that they don't tell you that when you start the major that
right. Exactly. Yeah. So, so I took off to law school, and it was kind of one of those things that you just went to practice law, but I kind of always knew I wanted to do something more. The big firm atmosphere wasn't all that appealing to me. It didn't fit my personality. So I wanted to do something a little more hands-on, a little more entrepreneurial in spirit. And so I left the big firm atmosphere and started into a smaller firm and started doing more and more transactional real estate, and saw an opportunity to kind of grow what we were currently doing, which was more commercially focused and having a harder time appealing to residentially focused real estate from a closing perspective. So we opened up the title company in 2013 and created that as a separate entity and an affiliated company. So they are a great feeder for each other. Honestly, we get a lot of work that come door and potentially out the other because that's where it was actually needed, or there was some touch that was needed somewhere on it. So, and then I supplement that with my own real estate deals as well. I do have an active broker's license. I don't solicit that. I don't use it for other folks. I really use it for my own. I find that I'm busy enough with what I'm doing on the other two fronts that I can't try to tackle that too. But yeah, really, it was just kind of a love for real estate and wanting to be hands-on and in a smaller, I would say, atmosphere where I kind of had some control over who my clients were and what the growth opportunities and
Yeah.
objectives looked like. So
Yeah. What was your
yeah.
experience? What sector were you working at the big firms? Were you doing real estate there as well?
It was real estate focused, but it was more driven on, we did a lot of condo and HOA work. And so I
Oh,
always
okay.
used to joke around with friends that there's only so many letters you can write to people. They're like, your dog can't go to the bathroom on my yard anymore. That type of thing where you kind of say, I'm going to go crazy if I write another one of these. So I knew I needed to make a switch and do something different, but yeah.
Yeah, there's too many rules in those types of things.
Yeah.
Your grass is not cut appropriately. Your bushes are trimmed too low.
Yeah, I think I wrote all those letters.
Did you always, I mean, before law school, were you thinking real estate was something that you've always wanted to do, or was that something that you've developed, kind of like you were mentioning, like talking with the HOA and kind of you get yourself in there easily?
Yeah, I always had an interest for it. It was tangible. You can see it, you can grasp it. It just made sense to me. And so when I was young, my dad would invest in real estate and kind of follow him around and look at properties. And so I think it started at a pretty young age, at least the interest. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with it. And I think the law school, finding out that I liked the property related classes in law school really helped guide a lot of that too. So.
Okay. For a non-lawyer entrepreneur, we always get afraid of contracts. I think most entrepreneurs, we rely on our lawyer friends, but at the same time, we're always afraid. And so we're always double checking. It's got to be a different approach to entrepreneurship when you can confidently move forward with large. Do you have any fun stories or interesting stories about how that journey has been? And you've been like, reading your own contracts or reading other people and be like, no, this is not right.
Yeah, I think honestly it plays in pretty well. Again, and I talk to agents about this all the time. They hear the term an attorney and everybody freezes up and they say, you don't need an attorney. You don't need an attorney.
Yeah,
and the thought is, well, you're going to step in and kill a deal. And then the reality is we have no interest in killing a deal. We want to see the deal go forth and we want to see the deal prosper. So, really, I think it ends up playing out more in that favor, especially, we're not litigation minded. It's a transactional scope of the law. And so we're very much, how do we make the deal happen? And so that's how we try to approach it. But as far as funny stories or using it from our own perspective, I mean, definitely is one of those things you end up using that to your advantage, but I'm not sure that any of those are necessarily comical in nature. It's
well, for us, it would probably be because I'm sure I've asked some really weird questions like, does this make sense? And the lawyer's like, yeah, you need it. So exactly. I'm probably a butt of a lot of those jokes personally. So when you joined DeWitt, that was in 2013.
Correct.
How has your career been? I mean, did you go right up and kind of start up the real estate? But did you take over some clients? How did that work?
So I kind of came in with a book of business. The firm that I joined when I left the big law firm was myself and another solo practitioner, and we were kind of both growing our networks and growing our book of business. And then a year into working with each other, he actually passed away suddenly from a heart attack, unfortunately. And so at that point, kind of looking around for options. And the DeWitt firm that I'm with is historically an Orlando-based firm that was started by our founding partner, Sherry DeWitt, in the 90s. And she is now retired, but they were interested in having more of a Tampa presence and a transactional arm. And so it was just kind of the right opportunity, right fit at the right time. So
now, did you find when you left that big firm that the opportunity to start your firm with this partner of yours, was it like a scary time for you, or were you ready and like, I'm quitting, let's just do it? Was there any challenges to start up your firm?
I think there's always challenges, of course, and there's always the scary what ifs and the wake ups in the middle of the night going, what am I doing? That type of thing. But it was also a very different I don't know if time's the right word, or phase in my life too. I didn't really have any. I had very little commitments at that point.
Yeah, no kids, no wife.
Yeah, exactly. It was just kind of you do what you're doing, and that was what I had to look out for. So probably be a little bit of a different analysis at this point than it was at that point. But it worked out, and I also knew I knew coming in that I needed to make that change in order to, be content with what I was doing and happy with what I was doing. So it was kind of a no-brainer, but certainly those question marks linger in the back of the head a little bit for sure. So yeah. And it was a typical, when I left the firm I was with, you get these conversations of people looking at you, go, "What are you doing? What's the matter with you?" And so
you're leaving your salary for what?
Right. Yeah. So
I think we all experience that as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Walking away, and even even if you didn't have a major career or anything, just walking away from a basic salary is just a lot of people who don't get it. They're the ones that question. But but you've obviously been excelling. So many of our businesses that I've talked with started out of that 2010 to 2013 range, and this is really no different. Over the past 7 years going into this, have you made any changes to the firm that you've enhanced it at all in terms of the Tampa operation? It sounds like you started it from scratch almost with an extension of the name, but
yeah, pretty much. We've really the kind of scope of what we're doing changed a lot too. And real estate in 2010, even before, but 2010 to 2012 in particular was pretty dire, and so we were doing a lot of distressed work and a lot of workouts and things along those lines. And so part of that evolution is reworking the framework of practice areas too, focusing on where the growth opportunities are. But things that real estate in particular, I think, is a slow field for technology, and in particular closing. So it's been a lot of fun to watch in the last I would say even probably 2 to 3 years, as much as anything, the technology starting to catch up in that sector. And if you watch any type of sports, I was watching the Gator game this past weekend, and they Rocket Mortgage is on nonstop, and so you're seeing these kind of things come up that are changing the face of a dinosaur industry to a certain capacity. And so us trying to stay on the cutting edge of that and keep up with it to offer, e-notarizations and online signings and, stuff that's no longer face-to-face. And granted, in theory, COVID has really expedited a lot of that too. So
yeah, I would imagine
that's been one of the big things that we've tried to keep up with. We're kind of always tweaking our formula on the legal side as far as, retaining and recruiting and retaining good talent too, because it's an industry where people are in and out a lot. People change firms a lot for grass is greener theories, or they're going a different area with their practice, whatever it may be. But kind of always tweaking how we're evolving in compensation models, as well as who we're going after is a big thing that we focus energies on as well. So.
Right. I would imagine that if you have a big practice and you're leaving it, you would want to get with a firm that is more transactional as a kind of a way to buy through your non-compete. Is that typical in attorney world, or is that just not normal practice?
People kind of come and go pretty freely. You're not supposed to solicit clients and take clients with you, but most of the actively solicit, I should say. Yeah. But most clients, that have a relationship with an attorney are following the attorney, not the firm per se.
Yeah,
but,
right.
There is some of that where you get niched, or you get dedicated enough as a firm, and clients are going to probably stay with the firm over an attorney, but it's not all that common. So
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to technology, you brought up that, kind of change in technology. What are you doing from a title company standpoint to help keep up with the technology platforms? Have you been investing in any technologies, or just utilizing the current ones?
Yeah, and actually more of that is happening on that side, and so we're seeing a big transition and a big shift among the mortgage industry in particular to try to force that onto sort of the other extensions of a closing, whether it be the agents themselves or the title company or survey companies, whatever. But we've moved entirely into new cloud-based softwares that are expediting a lot of our process. So, or it's things even as simple as order entry that used to take, we got to order a survey, new platforms that we have will order your search, your survey, your lien search, all of these things at once just by putting it in. So, investing in that right technology. And then also the other big thing we're seeing, as I said, is are the e-closings, which is that's a new thing in Florida as of this year, because remote online notarization wasn't legal in Florida until 2020. And so that's been a very strange thing for a lot of people, and in particular us conducting it, because signing your work that you used to have to literally sit in front of me to sign, and there was no other way around that. So it's been fun to kind of watch some of that. But
is it a video
it is
e-sign
quite
or
literally a video? Yeah. So there are a couple of platforms that have been created where you can become an e-notary now versus just a notary, and they're tasked with making sure that identification is proper and that it's not forged and fraudulent, and they have systems to check that, and then they are literally e-notarizing you as you're signing a document in your house on camera in front of them. So
that's cool. Yeah. We from HR standpoint, the I-9 is always one of those forms that from an employee standpoint, you always have to show the IDs and sign it in person. But with COVID, they the federal government waived the in-person, but you can do it electronic now too. So huge advances in technology during this time of crisis, but hopefully it sticks around. Hopefully, is there any chance that Florida would go backwards on that?
I don't think, if you'd ask me that question in a non-COVID world, I think you'd have a lot more people dragging their feet. And I think that is simply hit the accelerator, and I don't think there's any looking back. And it's funny because in our, what I've been talking about is largely the residential world of real estate, but in our commercial practice, they're even more dinosaurs, so it's literally we're FedExing documents that are getting signed and they're FedExing back, and it's cumbersome. There's no two ways around it, but it'll be, and they're doing a better job, I would say, of holding out on some of this than the residential world is doing for sure. But they'll fall at some point, and they'll come around and see the benefit, but it's just, it'll take some time.
I would imagine it's the banks that's dragging their feet more. Is that right? Yeah.
Largely, there's definitely some of that, and I think some of it honestly comes from the attorneys too, that are just, it's always the what if of the challenge. Are you going to get challenged on this? Is there something that's going to come up and you're going to have to fight a fight that maybe you wouldn't have had to fight otherwise? And so there's some delay in that. And until the precedent is set, you'll probably see some people dragging their feet on it for sure.
Yeah, I guess fraud is fraud, and they'll find a way around the system. And I guess you're right from that standpoint. Do you think blockchain could be some of that next phase in terms of real estate transactions that will help kind of really eliminate the fraud aspect of these types of transactions?
Yeah, and that's one of those kind of emerging things. And candidly, I don't know enough about it. Honestly, I haven't kept up with it, and it hasn't been forced on me yet. So I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but there's definitely industry chatter about how that can cut down on a lot of that, and that's actually going to, I think, probably be the next phase of major transition for that industry. So.
I mean, ultimately, you just want to know, do you own the property or not? That you're selling or giving away? Like, do you actually own this?
It's always that what if question.
That's the question, right? So if blockchain can solve that, then hey, maybe we're onto something from
exactly. That'll be a fun one to watch too, for sure. I mean, I think it's neat too to watch some of my colleagues that you see just in listservs and different, do a transaction with them here and there, but several of them have kind of created sub industries out of these things. So, and the blockchain will be no different. You'll see somebody that takes an interest in it somewhere, and they do it day in and day out. So they'll create a nice little shortcut or something to make it easier on the overall industry, and that's fun to watch because you get to see their entrepreneurial spirit come out. So.
It sounds like it, anytime there's disruption like that something awakens in certain people that kind of kickstarts them. So, do you, does your dad consider himself an entrepreneur? Or just an investor?
I think probably more just from an investment side. I mean, I think he he was more of defined himself more as probably a professional than anything, and looked at it that aspect more than an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
But there was certainly something there. I mean, he was his own business owner, and but in a medical field, and so I think he probably, if you asked him, he would say more professional, but there's definitely some entrepreneurial currents there too. So.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the trends that I talked with a lot of people, and like they weren't necessarily their parents weren't necessarily entrepreneurial, but they were always had something different, a different approach in their life that kind of allows a spark into our lives, and it's funny because it's all risk. It's just a matter of how we approach risk versus an investor approaches risk versus a business owner, all different really.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating to hear those stories. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. Go ahead.
Tell me about how big your practice is at DeWitt, and then also how many employees you have at Old Tampa Title.
Yeah, sure. So we have in this market, we have 3 attorneys, and we're all focused in the real estate sector. Our Orlando office has 5 attorneys in that market. And so we serve all the kind of the I-4 corridor in Central Florida.
Sure.
And then on the title side, we actually just hired our 4th closer. So we're up to 4 closers, a processor, and then intake personnel. So
Nice.
I don't know, what is that? I guess
7, 8.
5 total on that. Yeah. Then the attorneys on top of it. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So, what do you anticipate any more hires this year or next year? Are you looking to grow?
I think this year, I don't think we will have any this year. I think, depending on where we see kind of Q1 and Q2 of next year go, certainly a lot of the change on the title side right now is trying to get it, the levels of management where they need to be to run as efficiently as possible. And so, trying to backfill some of those positions as people move up, and that's going to kind of be the year outlook for us. So
cool. All right. Very good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you're a golfer. What's your handicap? Or are you just an occasional golfer?
That's a good question. I used to play a lot, and I at my peak I played to a 6 handicap, and I'm probably more of about a 11 or 12 at this point. So I try to play once, twice a month. It's not a ton, but it's I have a 4-year-old daughter at home who keeps me pretty busy at this point, and so it's tougher and tougher to sneak out for 4 or 5 hour windows of time, but always fun to get out there. Yeah, especially this time of year when it starts to cool off a little bit. So
it's not how do you
quite
balance
as sauna out there? So
how do you balance running 2 businesses and a family and growing the businesses? What is your philosophy? How do you approach kind of where you allocate your time?
It's a good question, and honestly, it's one that is a constant struggle. I learned early on that I had to try to delegate as much as I could, and that's a big part of my day, is just figuring out what can be delegated and making sure that things are getting to where they need to get in order to keep moving. But it's a challenge for sure. And I mean, family is important, and my wife made me promise when my daughter was born that I wasn't going to be a workaholic and an absentee father, and so I've done a good job of keeping that commitment, I think. And but my wife's a huge help. She left kind of her corporate job about a year and a half ago, and she made more of a focus on the family, so that's been very helpful. And she's actually looking to go back and kind of do her own entrepreneurial pursuits. So that's been a lot of fun to, share ideas with her and talk some of that stuff through too. But yeah,
it's
I mean,
man, it's contagious.
Oh, it is, yeah. It's fun to, it's fun just, I think share the ideas and, kind of even dream of where you can go with stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100% agree. Cool. All right. Very good. So you mentioned kind of fourth quarter, you think the real estate market's going to continue through fourth quarter. Any other thoughts on the rest of this year or any big plans for yourself?
It'll be as far as where we go. The elections always have some impact. No matter what the outcome is, there's going to be some impact somewhere, I think, as to what occurs. But nobody has the crystal ball to know exactly what that'll look like.
Right.
I think locally, I'm really optimistic about sort of the greater Tampa Bay market. I think we have a tremendous number of people who are moving here. We've truly become a secondary city that is on the map that we've never been that before, and so I think there's still a lot of growth opportunity here. I think there's still going to be a lot of people moving here, and I get that sentiment a lot with just clients that are exiting some of the northeastern states for either tax reasons or for climate reasons, whatever their driver is. Yeah, exactly. So I don't see necessarily a slowdown with that. And I think that where other markets may struggle, I think we will locally excel, which is going to be, a good thing, right, in particular for our business, but I think for most businesses in this area to kind of capitalize on. So we're real optimistic for what that future holds. And then, as far as more on a personal side, we're trying to keep our head up, travel a little bit here and there to, keep things interesting at least and see some other stuff, but also be cognizant of, the world we're living in right now and making sure everybody's healthy and safe and everything else. So it's going to be interesting to see how the holidays play out.
Yeah, a lot of people are making vacation plans the rest of this year. I think so many people have been cooped up for too many months.
Yeah, it is. It's funny that my parents were actually on a flight this morning, and my mom was texting me saying that it was pretty much entirely full. So it's people are out and about, I guess, and hopefully taking precautions. So
yeah. Good. Cool. Well, before we close the show, let me bring up your website. So we'll just Old Tampa Bay Title .com, and where can people go if they want to learn more about this business? On your website, where should they go? Yeah,
the website actually is pretty easy. There's a pretty good drop down menu, I believe. I haven't been on there all that recently. They're constantly kind of making tweaks and changes, but talks about our team, talks about what we focus on and the services we provide. So there's some good information about us and who we are and contact. So yeah.
Look at this team. Cool. All right. Very good. And then DeWittLaw.com is the other one. And you can look at the Tampa office right here if you wanted to learn more about that.
Yep. And different practice areas.
With all of the PR that you guys have had. I mean, I love that it's front row, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Andrew, thank you very much for being on the show today. Would you have any closing words or anything else you want to say to our listeners today?
No, just glad to be a part of EO and excited for what the future holds on that front and getting to know more of the members on a deeper level. So
perfect. All right. Well, I'm going to close the show. Stay on the line, and we'll close it out. All right. Well.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
That was Andrew Hoek. He is truly an entrepreneur with his hands in multiple different aspects. But the cool part about his businesses that they all kind of interact. He creates an ecosystem of businesses that interact with each other, and really shows that potentially one of the ways he balances his life is by keeping everything kind of within the ecosystem. So thank you to Andrew for being our guest today. Please follow us on Facebook and YouTube. We'll be live streaming next Tuesday with our next guest, but look forward to seeing you. Entrepreneur, you should know. Thank you. And again, this is Matt Klinsky, your host. Have a great day.